Hello, can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let's start today. Last class we discussed basics of HDFS file system. We also took an example of a Java program. We took the Java program, ran it, and program was, from its functionality perspective, if you can add copy a file into Hadoop file system, you can create directory, or you can even read or remove those kind of operations. We also discussed basic node manager structure, other stuff. So we discussed, when you look at the name node, that is the node the client always communicates with. And we said there are three types of name nodes. One is the name node, which is we call main, other was secondary name node, and third was standby name node. Can summarize or tell me the difference between the name node, secondary name node, and the standby name node? Anyone? Difference between name node, secondary name node, and the standby name node? Afrin?
Yes, sir.
What is the difference? We discussed, explained last time. There are three kinds of name nodes. Abhishek?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is the difference?
Uh, I don't.
Were you not there in the class yesterday?
Sir?
Were you not there in the class yesterday?
I was there.
Then you should be able to, I've been elaborating. And if you don't follow, then you have to ask me. I think I did elaborate the key difference. I probably repeated 2 times at least. Akshata,
Yes, sir.
the difference between name node, secondary name node, standby name node. Akshita,
Yes, sir.
yeah, tell me the difference. I'm looking for, I believe I spent quite some time explaining the 3 functionalities. Amogar or Amogha.
Name node is a place where the information about the HDFS is stored. And secondary node is just a it'll enter the edit logs and all this stuff of name node in the secondary name node. It is just a helper of a name node.
But what did you do after adding to those edit logs?
Edit logs are stored in secondary name node just for the information of when was it accessed and all.
No,
When was
little
it?
difference. So it is a helper node, that's right. Edit logs are not stored in secondary name node. They are stored in journal nodes. So what it does is whenever name node starts, it has some starting point information, what the metadata is, which is maintained in the file called fsimage. On start time, it reads the fsimage file. It reads whatever edit logs are there, merges, and then one starts. After the name node starts, There will be other operations happen after that. So there will be additions to edit logs. Now next time, if name node has to start and it has to reapply all edit logs, it will take too much time. So what the secondary name node does, it takes all the edit logs, update the FS image, and send this FS image to the name node, which name node can say. So that next time the name node starts, it doesn't have to merge all the edit logs. It has to look at only those edit logs which have been added, which is received last time from secondary name node. Since we are talking of a large Hadoop cluster, we can very well say that name node itself could do the merge operation. But name node main job is to schedule the jobs, look at the data nodes, maintain metadata, communicate to the client. So this extra hour of merging, which could be too much of a job, that's the job done by secondary name node. And so it reads the edit log from journal nodes, merges them to FSMS file, and gives it to name node so that next time when you start, it can take that. Thanks. So what is a slave name node or slave node? Or standby, sorry, standby name node. Anoop?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is standby name node? Anusri, Chandana?
Tracks.
Yeah,
tracks
go ahead.
Tracks name node.
Standby name node tracks name node in what way?
In the case of the logs of the files.
No, that is the job secondary name node. And tracking is not done by the standby name node. That's a service run by Zookeeper, which monitors and looks at which name nodes are up and running. Which is okay, not knowing is fine, but you should at least look at discuss. Chandana BR, what is the functionality of a standby name node? Chandana Kesava, yeah, go ahead.
When there is a failure of a name node to maintain the state, it acts as a backup node or something.
Yeah, so whenever name node fails and Zookeeper informs the name node has failed, then it takes over and becomes the main name node. At any point in time, there could only be one active name node for a given file namespace. So that's what we had done. Thanks. Let's proceed. So we run the program. Today what we'll do is we will run some example programs. These example programs are available as part of distribution. We'll look at some of those example programs, run those. For example, compute value of pi, do a tera sort, means sorting terabytes of data, or looking at the benchmark, will not look today, managing MapReduce jobs, and so on, so forth. So to look at what is the example program distributed available, you can basically search for Hadoop MapReduce example. And depending on the release, you'll probably find this. Since I am doing 2.10.1, you'll probably find. So let me show you how to find that. Look what my lab cluster is down. I think after because of the college closed, they probably shut down all the UPS. So I can't access my Hadoop cluster in the lab. So I set up the simple Hadoop node on my desktop or laptop, and that's what I'm using. So I can probably do that. Since my installation happens to be opt Hadoop-2.10.1, let's see which one. Sorry, it's asking password. I made a mistake. So you can see this is the file. Can you guys read my screen or is it too small?
It's visible.
So this is the example available. We can run directly. You have a sources here available, those who want to look at source code. And I would strongly recommend you to look at the source code, how things run. And then when you run this program, you run through the Yarn. So login is a Yarn user. So all you need to define to avoid typing too much, I can set up my Hadoop example, which is in this place. I'm logged in as a Yarn user. I set it up and now I can say jar Hadoop examples. And then I had this file. Sorry. Yarn jar. Yeah. And you see, it basically gives you number of different example programs like aggregate word count, it has a different input, word histogram, computing exact value of pi, page view, grep, join, other part of this stuff. So you can run this and you'll basically see number of programs available. So like it gives you aggregate word count, which basically runs MapReduce and counts all the words in the respective input files. Or you can draw a histogram of the words, what frequency they appear. A program which computes exactly, and there is another program which we'll use today that estimates. And we'll look at the difference between computing versus estimating. Then you can count page views and other programs. You can look at grep. What does the grep program does? Grep command line, I asked Linux. So what does the grep command does?
To search for a file.
It doesn't search for a file. It searches
It
in a
gives a
file.
path.
Searches in a
Yes.
file. But what does it search? Any given input pattern. So basically you can give a regular expression and it will search that regular expression in that file. And that is what the grep command does. So if you have a distributed files across places and you want to search the regular pattern, that's what the grep command does. And we'll look at the grep program in Java, try to run it, join two files, sorting data, or count from several files. Look at, I don't know what the Pento Mino program is. I have not tried it, but I would like you to explore. We will use this program of pi that will estimate. Again, I'm using the word not compute, but estimate the value of pi. Estimation meaning we're trying to what estimate could be not, we may not get a precise value we're trying to estimate, but other program BBP would be actually computing. And when we discuss this, you'll know why this is an estimate. Write random text, write random numbers, sorting, the program called sort, Sudoku, you probably all know GameClever, and Sudoku does not use MapReduce. And when we look at that, we'll tell you why it doesn't use MapReduce paradigm. TeraGen is a program that generates terabytes of data, and then you have a TeraSort. I use these programs on the lab cluster. You probably can't use in the local laptop because they may require too much data. And so probably you can use the normal data generation and use the sorting programs. A validation is the result, right? And again, word count, the typical example, anywhere you see MapReduce example, first example they give you is word count, how many times a word appears in a file or some such thing, or the mean average word length and so on, so forth. related to that, standard deviation, median, mean, those kind of details. So let's look at how do we run the pi program, estimating the pi program. Now this pi program, we are doing an estimation, and it basically works with the following assumption. Assume that we have a circle and this circle is of radius r. When the circle is of radius r, what is the area of this circle? Anyone?
Pi r squared.
Pi r square, correct? If I draw a square around the circle touching all the four sides so that the circle is inscribed in the square, what would be the area of the square? Given that radius is r of the circle, what would be the area of the square?
2r the whole squared, sir.
How much is that? 4r square?
Yes, sir.
So I know the, assuming that I know the r, I know the area of the circle pi r square. I know the area of the square, which is 4r square. So if I take the ratio of area of the circle and area of the square, what would that ratio be? Pi by 4? Is that right, or are there any questions about it?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
that
sir.
means if I can measure the area of the circle, if I can somehow measure the area of the square and multiply this ratio by 4, I would get the value of pi. And that is what the Quasi-Monte Carlo method or the value of pi, that algorithm basically uses. So how do we do that? Let me just try to show you an example there. Consider that our radius of the circle is 1. I'm taking a coordinate geometry. I'm saying radius of circle is 1. So if we look at the point coordinates, this would be 1, 1, this could be 1, -1, and -1, -1, and so on and so forth. So I take the square and I draw a circle. Now I can take some random number of points. I take a point P with their x coordinate lying between -1 and +1, and y coordinate lying between -1 and +1. So when I take those random points, I take one point, find out the value of x, find the value of y. The point could be anywhere in this square. Because I am taking a point with x in the random range of -1 to +1, I am taking y in the random point in the range of -1 to +1, uniformly distributed. So I would get a point somewhere in the square. Can we get a point outside the square when I'm taking a point, a random point in the range of -1 to +1? Will it be possible that the point would lie outside the square?
No.
No. Now, given that my radius of circle is 1, this is xy axis, what is the equation of the circle? Does anyone remember in high school days? Equation of a circle. Anyone remember the equation of a circle in coordinate geometry? Chenna Keswa.
X minus h whole square plus y minus k whole square is equal to r square.
What is h and k? Answer is right, but can you tell me what is h and k? You got two more variables there?
The center of the circle.
In this case, center of circle I said 0.
Yes, sir.
So what the equation becomes?
X square plus y square
X
is
square
equal to r
plus
square.
y square
Is
is
equal to what is r in this case?
1.
1. So
1.
equation would be x square plus y square is equal to 1. Right?
Yes.
Now let me take a random point 0.8, 0.8. Will this point be lying within this circle or outside this circle? Consider this point. Will this point lie within the circle or outside the circle?
Within the circle.
Why? How would you say that? How do you determine that this point lies within this circle or outside the circle?
Sir, because the coordinates value are lesser than the value of x and y, like because here x is -1 plus 1 and the
Okay.
given value is 0.8.
Yeah. So 0.8, will it be somewhere here? Let me see.
Yes, sir.
Will the point 0.8 would be close to A or would close to B? Give a thought, guys.
Close to A, sir.
What is the equation of a circle? X square plus y square is equal to 1. We agreed that. Equation of the circle, which is this perimeter, is x square plus y square is equal to 1. So for any point inside the circle, equation would be less than equal to 1. And for any point outside the circle, the value would be greater than 1. So
Yes, sir.
any point on the boundary, the x square plus y square would be 1. Any point inside would be less than 1. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now for this, what is x square plus y square?
So
1.28.
1.28. So this means this point is outside the circle.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So now I take some 1,000 points, random points, uniformly distributed over this square. Again, this diagram is not in the book. You will not find it. So I'm explaining it to understand how the Monte Carlo program works. And the first assignment would be kind of related to based on this. So let's take 1,000 point uniformly distributed over the entire square. If they're uniformly distributed, I can say that 1,000 represents area of the square. Let me repeat. I take 1,000 random points with x and y coordinate between -1 and +1. And so I can assume that the 1,000 points will roughly represent area of the square. Out of the 1,000 points, using this equation, I count the number of points n which is lying inside the circle. So if x square plus y square less than 1, I would say it is inside the circle. If it is greater than 1, it is outside the circle. Fine. So I have 1,000 points. 1,000 points represent the area of the circle. The number of points lie inside the circle because they're uniformly distributed and would indicate area of the circle. Are we in sync?
Yes, sir.
So what would the value of n by 1,000 be?
Sir, can you repeat, sir?
I had taken 1,000 randomly, uniformly distributed random points lying between -1 and +1. So can say 1,000 represents my area of the square because some points would be here, some here, some here. They're all randomly distributed. So I can roughly say that the 1,000 random points, the 1,000 number represents my area of the square. Because they'll be distributed almost all across. Out of the 1,000 points, I look at all those points who satisfy this equation. X square plus y square is less than equal to 1. And let that number of points that satisfy the equation is equal to n. So that means my value n roughly approximately equals area of the circle. My value 1,000 approximately equals the area of the square. Is that point clear? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
So given that n represents the area of the circle, 1,000 represents area of the square, what would the value n by 1,000 represent?
Ratios of
Perimeter of the circle.
No, tell me. I'm saying n represents area of the circle, 1,000 represents area of the square. So what would n by 1,000 give me?
pi by 1,000, sir.
Not pi by 1,000. 1,000 represents area of the square.
Okay.
N represents area of the circle. So what would be n by 1,000? What is n? Pi r square.
Yes, sir.
What is 1,000? 4r square.
Yes, sir.
So what will be n by 1,000?
Pi by 4.
Pi by 4. So area of circle by area of circle give me pi by 4. So basically my pi would be 4n by 1,000. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So let's say I'll give simple example program. I don't know whether you can see this. How do I increase the viewpoint? Can you guys see the screen? I don't know how to enlarge it.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Can you look at this program, what I'm doing here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm basically saying take the number of total points, which I want to consider. For all those total points that represent my area of the square, get the random points between -1.0 to +1.0. And if it is less than equal to 1.0, I count the number of points in a circle. Having run this, I can estimate the value of pi as 4 into area of the circle by area of the square. Because CNT represents area of the square, circle count represents area of the circle. Dividing by this, I'll get the value of pi. Is that okay? Will this give me the value of pi? Let me show the program again. Anyone, will this give me the value of pi or no? It's a simple Python program. So
Yes, sir. It will give.
let's run this program. The run module, number of iteration count, let's say I give 1000. I'm running it 1000 times. Value I get is 3.172. See, again, we are saying estimating because if we are using a random in one point, so nowhere we can say my number of points exactly represent the area. It will be some estimate, could be wrong or right. Now, if I take more points, as long as I keep getting more points, I'll be getting more and more closer to the area. So if I run the program again, this time I run with, let's say, 10,000 points. It still gives the same value. That's okay. Let's look at run with more points. $100,000 points. You're getting a value 1.464. We're getting closer. Let's run one more time. Let's say 1 million points. You get 1/4. So you see, if you run with more number of points, let's say last I run with 10 billion points. It will probably take a little longer, but you'll probably get a little better value there, 3.1418 or 16, whatever, something of that kind. You probably get a closer values. And we are calling it estimate because we are picking a random uniformly distributed points. They can never truly represent the area, but we are approximating it. And that is what this basically the pi program does. Is that part clear? How the pi program works?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
now, so how does MapReduce works? So we can run more number of times. Some machines could be biased. So we can run different number of instances. So I invoke this program, let's say with pi 16, and that means I want to run 16 instances of this program. And each program should invoke 10,000 points. So map job is run this program in 16 places. They will give the value of pi using the method I just told you, and it takes an average. And when I run this on the actual cluster in the lab, it basically tells you it will do 16 mapping. Map 0, map 1 goes up to map 16, starting the job. Then you see a progress, map 0% done, then map 13% done, map 100% done, reduce, and then finally you get the answer. It took 32.301 seconds, and you get approximate value as 3.14. Let me try to run the program for you. So let's run the pi. Now, since I'm running a single node, I cannot run too many instances because I run out of memory and it will give me errors and crash. So I'll basically invoke 2 instances. So that means we'll make only 2 instances of the pi program. And let's invoke with, let's say, 1,000 points. So I'll probably get a approximate value which not be correct one, but at least you get the idea. So let me run with these 2 instances. with each instance making use of 1,000 points. So just start, sorry. Oh, neither my HDFS is running nor my yarn is running. So let me first run those parts. Let me start running. So let me go to Hadoop and start running Hadoop services and yarn services. I can move this. No, I'm not giving a control to anybody. So whoever asking, I'll start. So on single node, you can run your programs, go to the directory HDFS, start the name node. So Hadoop, I start the name node. So name node is started. Then I would run the secondary node. Secondary node is started. And then I start the data node where the actually program would run. So these are only the actual name node and data node. I need to run the yarn services. So I'll start with the yarn. I need to go to the directory, which is Hadoop installation path /sbin. That's where you'll find all these programs. So yarn, I'll run my resource manager, which is actually the yarn service. Then I would start node manager, and then history manager. Now all programs are running. Now I can invoke my Pi program. Can you guys see this? It says number of maps 2, samples per map 1,000. It says input for map 0, map 1, only 2 instances. Number of splits 2, running 2 times. Job is started. Now it will say how much map completed. So it'll probably take a while, few seconds. And you can actually look at the job status in the browser by entering this URL. So it says map 0% job scheduled, yarn manager. Soon you would see map maybe 50% or 100%. So because first map has to be run, then the reduce would run. Remember, is a single instance node, probably take a while, so don't. Now map is at 100%. Now the job of reduce. Once reduce completes, you'll probably see the value of pi, which will not be very precise, but you'll get some approximate value. Now 100% reduce is done, and now you basically successfully, and so value of pi is 3.144. And whole program took about 72 seconds. This is because first time we are running, a lot of initialization would have been done. If I were to run the same program, let's say with 10,000 points, you'll probably get a little better value. With 1,000 points, we got 3.144. Let's run with 10,000 points. It probably now take less time because there's no initialization. So quickly it will start. It will do a map, first map process part, say map 0%, and then it will run the give status of map. Mapping meaning it is scheduling a job, sending this program to each of the 2 instances, which happens to be the same machine with single machine. But in real life, if you have cluster, you would see it going to different data nodes, and you can track that. And you can look at this in the browser and see the status. Let me see if I can open the browser. Connection refuse, something gone wrong. Let's see. Maybe I'm not able to. Let me just show the cluster here. It shows with the cluster. It's running. This job succeeded. The job is over. So we'll not see the status. Let us look at the command. See, I got the value 3.1428. Now let me run maybe with the higher values, and we notice job number 3. I'll go to my browser and see that where things are. If I refresh it, you'll see third job is accepted. And now if you look at, map is not even started yet, it will start soon. Now started, now I can look at the browser. If I refresh, so it's running. Now we can look at the application status, progress, application master. This probably will not show, or I can click on the other. Yeah, you can see the job is running here. Total maps to reduces 1, and program would basically be run. And once program is completed, you can look at things and maybe history. I'm not sure it will show that whether program ran successfully or how much time it took. You can see those values. But this current job is still running, as you can see the progress bar. So through UI, you can also monitor and see previous history. It says start submitted on this, started after 10 seconds, finished, and total time 38 seconds. And current job, which is still running, let's say which is still running or completed, is completed. You can look at the history there. And it took about 41 seconds. Sorry, 1 minute, 5 seconds. Now we can look at the value of pi. So 3.14118. So when we run with 1,000 samples, we got 3.144. With 10,000 points, we got 3.1428. So we run with more number of samples, you probably get better value. So on a single cluster setup, you can probably run with 2 nodes or 4 nodes, but running with more than 4 nodes, you'll probably run out of memory. So don't even try that. Any questions about running this Pi program? I've given you the logic. You understood the logic. Any questions on that? As you can see, I run with 10,000 samples. My value is 1.1427 on the cluster. I invoke with 50,000 samples. It took 36 seconds on the lab cluster. Value became this. I ran with 100,000 points. You got a little better value. I ran with 1 million points. You can still further refined value. Even under 10 million points, it probably took much longer, but I still got more closer value. So this is how it estimates, and why we call it estimate, because the number of points we are saying is approximate the area. It can never be precise value. Since we are approximating it, hence it is called estimating. So using the method of area, we can certainly determine that the number of points, and that should be okay. Any questions about computing the value of pi? Anyone? Now let me ask you a related question. If I were to take a sphere of radius 1 and enclose it within a cube touching all the sides, all the 8 sides, all the 6 sides. So I take a sphere with the radius 1. I enclose it with a cube with all the 6 sides that it touches. Using the volume of the sphere and volume of the cube, can we find out the value of pi? Did you understand my question? Chetra, I'm taking a sphere centered at 0, 0, 0 with a radius 1. I take a cube surrounded with the center at 0, 0, 0, which surround this or touches this cube inscribed. So using this like we did for circle and square, can we do that for sphere and the cube? And if so, given the volume of the sphere and the volume of the cube, can we find the value of pi? Take 2 minutes, work it out, and give me your answer. If question is not clear, ask me, I'll repeat. Dikshita, can you repeat the question? Dikshita is not there. Deepika? Deepika is not there either.
No, sir, Deepika, I'm there.
Yeah, so can you repeat the question?
I didn't get the question, sir.
I repeated it twice. Divya, can you repeat the question? Harshita? Indrasena? Can you explain what question I asked?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
It's nothing but inscribing the sphere inside the cube.
Yes.
Where the sphere has got a radius is equal to 1.
Yes.
So we are supposed to find the pi value.
Yeah, so can you give me the formula what the pi value would be? Work it out 2 minutes and give me the answer. And your assignment would be actually writing this program, one of the assignments. Is question clear to everybody? If it's not clear to anyone, please do ask me. That means you can give me the answer.
So first I calculated area of sphere by...
Not area of the sphere. You are not dealing with volume.
Okay.
Area sphere would not give you anything. Because now you're distributing point in 3 dimensions. So to look at the volume.
Okay, sir.
Sir, we'll have another variable, z variable.
Yes. So first give me the formula. Given the volume of a sphere and the volume of cube, what would that give you?
So x square plus y square plus z square should be less than 1.
Less than 1. That's how you compute, but I'm saying in terms of formula, how do you compute the value of pi? What would the ratio volume of sphere versus volume of cube would be? What is volume of sphere?
4/3 pi r cube.
4/3 pi r cube. What is the volume of cube?
E cube.
R cube.
8 r cube. So what the ratio would be? Volume of sphere by volume of cube?
4/3.
Not 4/3. Volume of cube is 8 r cube.
Sir, it will be pi by 6, sir.
Pi by 6, correct. So that means pi would be equal to 6 into volume of sphere divided by volume of the cube. So doing that, you should be able to calculate. So if I were to look at the program, though I haven't written it, program would be something like, let me see if I can run the program. Open recent file, Monte Carlo. So all I can do is jet. And all I need to say is and this would basically become 6. Let's say not circle count anymore, sphere count. Will this program work? Let me run this program.
Sir, before the 6, you missed a bracket, sir.
Before this, yeah. Thank you. It will give me error otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Circle count after 8 months.
It's around 10,000 points. Oh, a circle count, sorry. You'll get a value. If I run with larger values, you probably get a little better value. So you can take a different variations, and that's what you need to run. Any questions? This is what I showed running Pi program. I showed you the history. So run the Hadoop cluster setup on laptop, invoke these programs, invoke the other programs. I'm not running any benchmark, or you can run Terrajon. I've done on the lab. It took me a good amount of time, so I can run Terrajon with creating 500 million records, basically creating a 50 GB file, because each record was 100 bytes long. You created 500 million rows, each of 100 bytes. And you look at the applications, it can keep running. And you can run MapReduce command line, or you can run through UI to look at things up. And to tell you where things status are, look at the job, and you should be fine. So I'll probably say set it up, look at yourself. So given job, you know the job ID, and then you can run the job ID, it tells you what has happened to the job. And that's the way we can probably even look at our jobs, what we had done. Our jobs were this was our job. So my syntax, I don't remember. It is MapReduce job, that's the status. So it gives you the information. If you look at launch map job 2, task 2, reduce task only 1, map input record, because we run with 2 instances, they give each maybe gives you 2 outputs, so total 4. Map output byte is this, you get all those details. It tells you about the job. It doesn't give the output of the program, it tells you about how the jobs has been run. So you can look at the status, or you can look at the UI to look at those jobs. Number of counters, read, write. Don't actually do Magga, but at least look at what those commands are and how do those commands basically work. For different job, if I'm doing sorting, searching, you'll see number input records. For pi, it will be very less input. If you're doing a word count, you can appropriately look at how many inputs, how many outputs, and how many physical memory bytes are being used, depends on the program. If you simply run map reduce job, it basically tells you the syntax. What the possible commands are. If you look at submit, status, counter, kill, you can do events, all those kind of, explore all of those. If you do a list, it will probably give you a list of all. It's completed or something of that kind. And explore those. Look at all the jobs. I can list all, it will give you complete or whatever, and then you should be all fine. So I didn't give list all, so it didn't give me that, so I can give a list all here. It will probably display you all the jobs which has been completed. So we did 3 jobs. First was with 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 job, and you can see approximately there the job history. This is job 1, job 2, and job 3. And then you can look at the status of each job and will give you the information what that took. Again, it is very easy for me to show you, but unless you run it yourself, you probably won't appreciate, understand the way things work. So I would say set up a Hadoop cluster on a laptop, single node. Don't run heavy job, run a very small job and see how it would work. And try creating your own job. What I also done is all these sample programs from the authors I have uploaded into the files. So if we were to look at Teams, let's say I go to the Teams. This is 8A, so let me go to 8A. Files, class material. In the programs, you'll probably find all the programs from the authors have been uploaded for chapter 2, chapter 3, where in chapter 3, you can basically say Java program is in Java, client Java, and if you look at the corresponding C version, libhdfs, you have the libhdfs version, libhd-simpletest.c, or you can look at other programs like data or word count and other stuff, war and peace, what it uses. So all the programs from the authors I uploaded, you can download from here or whichever way and run from there. So that's all I have for today. We'll continue the next way. We'll not run the word count program. I'll leave it to you. So remind me, I can run word count from next lecture, but I would like you to run it yourself. Experience it, write your own program, you can Python or Java to see how things work out. And then I'll probably give you an assignment end of the week, so make your teams do that part. If any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we are done with the class today.